What's up, guys? It's Dwayne, back again for another video, back again for another reaction. Today's a great, wonderful, beautiful, amazing, delicious day because it's a Sweden day. 5 things non-Swedes do that Swedes find a bit weird. Without further ado, let's get into this reaction. Let's go.
Hey everybody, when you move to a completely different country like I did, moving across the world from America to Sweden, you're going to experience some things in the country that you move to that are a little bit culturally different.
And I will then pour the water on his head for the Father, the Son.
Maybe we can just skip that part.
Yeah.
If you just can skip to say the words Holy Ghost
Jesus
and
and
Jesus.
that. Yeah, I mean, we don't really believe in that.
So you want to go straight to the hymn then?
Well, we were thinking about maybe you can play this song, Don't You Worry Child, with Swedish House Mafia.
I've already made a video on this channel a long time ago
quite funny.
about 5 things that Swedish people do that I find weird. But a lot of times there's things where people that are not from Sweden, when they come to Sweden, the Swedish people think that they're weird for doing that. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. 5 things.
So before he did, I think we watched that one. I think if you look back on my channel, I think I looked at that video where he was saying what he found weird about, you know, Sweden, about Swedish people and what you guys do. This time it's like, what do you guys found weird about foreigners and people that are not from Sweden? Interesting.
That non-Swedish people do that Swedish people think is just weird. The first
What do
thing
you
that
find
non-Swedes might do in Sweden that the Swedish people think is weird is wearing wild or extravagant clothing. Now, Swedish people are known for having pretty good style, but also a very minimalistic and simple style. I think since moving to Sweden personally, I've worn a lot more solid colors like white, black, gray, a lot of these just sort
Like
of things
muted colors. That's fine because that's me. Like as you see, I'm always in a black t-shirt. I rarely wear colourful clothes. Like I'm very much a black wearing guy. So I get it.
Everything matches, everything goes together very well when you wear like all black, for example. And in Sweden, when you go outside the door, especially in wintertime, you don't see a lot of color. I've always been somebody that really likes this minimalistic, simple style, and I definitely have changed the way I dressed since I moved to Sweden 3 years ago. I remember back in high school, I was wearing like crazy bright colored athletic clothing. Being an athletic guy myself, I was always wearing sports clothes and standing out and those sorts of things. And that's something that the people, they just don't really do here quite as much. So if you're in Sweden and you see somebody wearing extremely bright colors or crazy clothing and drawing attention to themselves, chances are they may not be Swedish. The second thing that non-Swedish people will do in Sweden that the Swedish people will find a little bit weird, and this is...
Before we go to the next one, is that true for you? Let me know in the comment section below. Do you normally wear colours that are muted? Because I'm taking his word for it, but actually, I haven't been to Sweden. So I don't actually know what Swedish people normally wear. So is that true that you guys really don't really wear much colours and you wear things that are more muted and more kind of solid colours like blacks and browns and beiges and greys? Let me know in the comment section below.
This is sort of, I had the flip side when I was dating a Swedish girl in America and we were at a grocery store and I did something that I thought was actually kind of normal. I had all my groceries in the basket. It wasn't a lot of groceries, and I just put the basket on the conveyor belt at the grocery store. And my Swedish girlfriend at the time...
Wait, what? He put his entire basket on the conveyor belt. Why? It's a bit weird. That is a bit weird. Take your stuff out of the... Me personally, I would take the stuff out of the basket and put it on the conveyor belt and then put the basket underneath. I wouldn't put the whole entire basket on the conveyor belt. That's weird. Because it's just a bit weird. I don't know. Let me know, guys. Sorry. Let me know in the comment section if you find that weird. I find that weird. But is it weird to Swedish people for the same reason it's weird for me? Don't know.
At the time, she looked at me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean? It's just a few things, and the basket fits on the conveyor belt. Like, that's not a terrible thing to do." And she goes, "Oh, the people that work at the grocery store, that's really bad for their back. They have to reach in the basket and grab the groceries and all these things." And I'm going,
yeah,
that's actually right. I mean, maybe that was just me being lazy and not thinking about somebody else. But yeah, that's something that you would never see in Sweden. And a lot of Swedes will even go the...
Well, no, like, because when it's coming down the conveyor belt, it's like a really big basket. You have to pick it up. How are you going to get the stuff out? That's it is really bad. It's not good for your arms and your back. That's common sense. That's not I don't know. Americans are weird though. Americans do some things where you'd think that's common sense, you'd know not to do that, but they just do it anyways.
Go the extra mile as when they take the things out of their basket, they'll even turn so that the scanning barcode is lined up properly to make life easier for the checkout clerk.
Okay, now that's a quirk of Swedish people. That's a quirk. Because we don't do that in the UK. We don't like turn the barcode so it's easy for them to scan. What we do, which is probably a little bit selfish in the UK, I think most people do, we think about the way we pack our shopping. So we put the hard items on the conveyor belt first. I do anyways. I put the solid and hard items first so that when you're packing it in a bag, you put the hard things at the bottom and the soft things go on the top. So I always pack my soft things last. If that makes sense. I put the soft things on the conveyor belt last, but I definitely don't turn the barcode for it to be easier for them to scan. That's really nice of you, but I don't do that. Let me know if you do that in the comment section.
Which I'd never really seen anybody do this in America until I had dated this Swedish girl and she was taking the things out of the basket and actually aligning them. And I think this sort of sums up the Swedish mentality in a lot of ways, because they're very thoughtful and considerate of other people and they don't want to be inconvenient to those around them, so they always try to go the extra mile to make other people around them a little bit more comfortable or make other people's lives easier. It's a very community-centered mentality where everybody should do their part and pitch in. And even in a small thing like putting your grocery basket on the conveyor belt versus taking it out and actually aligning the scanner barcode, I think that says a lot about Swedish people.
So I'm halfway there with you guys. If this is true, I'm halfway there. Putting your basket on the conveyor belt, that makes no sense to me. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? That makes someone else's job a lot harder. Like, having to pick up that basket and take all the things out one by one. Where does the basket go? I don't know. I find that very difficult and annoying. That would be very annoying to me. But the turning the food around so it faces the barcode, I can't say I've ever done that.
The third thing that non-Swedish people do that Swedish people will find weird is talking to strangers. I know, this is sort of a crazy one because in America, this is totally no big deal. If you're out and about somewhere at a mall, at a grocery store, anything like that, it's completely normal to strike up a conversation with the people that are around you. And in Sweden, that is so not the case. And I was coming into Sweden when I first moved here with this American mentality of striking up a conversation. And it's not like the Swedish people were too weirded out because they were like, okay, he's a foreigner. He doesn't really get how we do things here. But now after living here in Sweden for 3 years, I definitely would say that I don't like to strike up small talk in the same way I maybe would. Unless I go to America on vacation for like a month or something and then come back to Sweden, then I'll be like in my American like chatty mode when I get back. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm back in Sweden. Like, I'm not going to be chatting up random people as much anymore.
Yeah, I get that. In England, in the south, I've said this a million times before because this has come up in a lot of videos. In England, especially in London, you don't really speak to strangers, especially when you're on public transport like the tube. You don't do that. Everyone is silent, face forward. If someone's speaking to you, they're weird or there's something wrong with them. That's just the honest truth. However, if you go to the rural parts of England, in the north of England, in the countryside, where I'm from actually, people are a lot more friendly and people are more likely to strike up conversations. The smaller the town, the more friendly people are. I'm from a city in the countryside. So I'm from a city in the north of England. So people in the north of England tend to be more friendly. So you're more likely to not get a weird look if you speak to a stranger. However, it's still a city, so people kind of keep themselves to themselves. So I'm kind of in the middle.
Much anymore. And now after living in Sweden for 3 years, I even get a little bit like, whoa, when somebody approaches me in public and wants to talk to me. Maybe it's somebody that recognizes me from my YouTube channel or something, and I always love to say hi. So if you see me around, you can always come say hi to me. I always love meeting people that watch my videos. I think that's really cool. But sometimes, people will strike up a random conversation or something when that happens. It's not something that happens very often, but I'm always like, whoa, okay, this is, it's surprising for me because now I've just become so used to the Swedish culture. And I think there's definitely pros and cons when it comes to this. In some regards, I think it's nice living in a place where it's easier to meet people, it's easier to have this small talk, and you can talk to people, and people aren't like, oh, what's wrong with this person? Like, why are they talking to me? It's none of that. I think there's definitely pros to that. But on the flip side, it can be nice living in a place where people just respect other people's personal space and time, and everybody just, you can just sort of be relaxed here because you don't feel like you have to. You're
not getting any. You can go about your business. You can go about your business. That's a very go about your business. Basically, meaning you can go about your day and no one will bother you. I think that's a good thing. Especially if you want to be productive. You don't want to be stopped in the street all the time and people want to have a chat. It's like, I'm trying to go from A to B. I need to go to the shop. I need to pick up some bread and some butter, and you are getting in my way. I don't know. I prefer to be in control of whether I have a conversation with someone. I think in a past life I was Swedish, basically.
Have to talk to strangers or these sorts of things. It's like, I don't know. I think there's like this, when I go out in public in Stockholm, I have my AirPods in and I'm walking around listening to music and stuff, and I'm sort of doing my own thing, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that either. I think there's people out there that appreciate having a little bit more of that personal space and not having to interact with people as much. Now, this fourth one is one that has gotten me into trouble a little bit at times, and because that is that people from other countries, they tend to joke around a lot more, I would say, than Swedish people. Like, going around with my friends in America, we're constantly like making fun of each other, making jokes with each other, and we know among our friend group that it is not serious.
Here's what I want you to realize. A, you're lying. Nobody comes up to you. Okay? Stephen A. Smith does not have one fan. Not one. There's never been a request for a picture. There's never been a request for a debate. You are you're snap finger famous. That's the guy. What's the guy that's on the thing?
I can see it in the way that Swedish people interact with each other. They're sort of more, I would say, more positive and uplifting in their ways of being with each other, whereas Americans are sort of putting each other down. But it can be.
Okay. So you get. That's interesting what you said then. So he's saying you guys don't have banter in the way of putting each other down. Because in the UK, we definitely have that banter, like that banter of like putting each other down. That is very much the UK definitely has that, and we have a very dry sense of humour as well. Not unlike the Finnish, actually, quite a bit similar to kind of the Finnish sense of humour. Maybe not as dry as that, but yeah, we're very much into banter. So that's interesting. He's saying that yours is more happy and uplifting, and actually I'm more like that, to be honest. But I'd like to know more about that, like the Swedish sense of humour. What does he mean by that? Let me know in the comment section below.
It can be in like an endearing way. And the fifth and final thing in this video that non-Swedish people do that Swedes will find weird is to speak Swedish. Yeah, I know, that's crazy. Swedish people are so good at English that when you're not Swedish and you speak Swedish to them, they're sort of like confused. They're like, should I switch to English? Should I speak Swedish? Like, I consider myself to be fluent in Swedish after living here for over 3 years. I've made a lot of videos on my channel speaking Swedish along the way, so you guys can check those out and see my progress as I learn the language. But even now, I still have an accent. I mean, people can tell that I'm not Swedish when I'm speaking Swedish. So sometimes I'll speak Swedish to somebody and they will switch to English, and I'm like, okay, like I don't mind, I can speak English as well. But it's interesting and funny to see that they're confused. And I think that actually says a lot about Swedish culture, that when you move to Sweden, you don't necessarily have to know Swedish because everybody here is so good at English. And I think this fifth point, it really says a lot and is a testament to the English skills that Swedish people have. But
yeah, your English must be so amazing that you can just switch to English. just out of the blue. Like, oh, you know, we can speak English instead of speaking Swedish. Like, you don't have to speak Swedish to me if you don't want to. That's cool. So you are definitely bilingual. Bilingual. Swedish people are bilingual. But it must be a little bit frustrating for him because he wants to use his Swedish language skills.
But at the same time, I think it's a little bit sad because I think when you move to a foreign country or if you're living in a country, I think there's a lot of value in learning that language because you're going to understand the culture more. You're going to be able to communicate with everybody easier. You're going to be able to understand what's going on around you. If you decide to call a country home, I think learning the language is the least you can do if you want to live in a place. But that's just my opinion, and that's the beauty of Sweden is that you actually don't have to speak Swedish to function in Swedish society.
But I would say also, living in a country, you also have to have a desire to learn that language. You know, there are certain languages that some people don't want to learn, like when they move to a country. But if I moved to Sweden, I would definitely want to learn Swedish because I like the way Swedish sounds and I like pronouncing the words. So I think if I moved to Sweden, I would 100% learn Swedish. And I would try my best to speak Swedish to people if I was there. So I'm a bit like him in that sense.
Which is crazy. So that's it for this one, guys. Those are the 5 things that non-Swedish people do that Swedish people may find weird. Comment down below which was the most weird for you if you're Swedish. Which one surprised you?
Yeah. In the similar vein, guys, let me know if what he's listed, if it's all true. Does that weird you out? Do these things weird you out about foreigners and the things that they do? I'll tell you the one that weirds me out though is when he said, I put the basket on the conveyor belt. I said, the basket on the... Why would you put the basket on the conveyor belt? Number one, the bottom of the basket's dirty. Is that me? I mean, in my head, I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. It's dirty. Why would you put the basket on top of the conveyor belt? Food goes on the conveyor belt. I don't know. In my mind, it just doesn't compute. So let me know in the comment section if you feel the same way. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Until the next one, I will see you very soon.